It's the weekend. That means we got new metal albums to talk about, and it's Enforce Day. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. I'm bringing you my top 5 best metal albums of the weekend, and as always, at the end of the episode, this week's best album art. But before we do the top 5, we got to talk about the big bands and the big releases this weekend. First up, I'm going to talk about an EP. I don't normally talk about EPs on this show. I normally reserve it for full-length albums only. But one of my colleagues, Jack Butler Terry, who writes for Distorted Mag, implied some threatening gestures if I didn't talk about it. So, hey, here we are. I'm talking about it. Here you go, Jack. Lunar Chamber, Shambilic Vibrations, some amazing tech death. I'm only kidding. I know that he wouldn't really threaten me like that. He just knows that I would love this. I checked it out. I definitely did. And if you check it out, you'll love it too, especially if you love guitar virtuoso tech death. Next up, we got some metalcore from Crown the Empire. That's a pretty big one. And speaking of big ones, we also got a live album from Cradle of Filth called Trouble and Their Double Lives. Yeah, I don't normally talk about live albums on this show either, but I've already broke the rules once, and it's Cradle of Filth. I mean, come on. And then lastly, before we do the top 5, I have to talk about it. I've been excited about it for weeks. Enforced, War Remains. If you love super heavy and pissed off thrash metal, then you have to get this one. I will have a link to me talking about it on a previous podcast at the end of the episode, so make sure you stick around for that. But here we go, top 5 time. Coming in at number 5, we've got Scrap Pile. Not to be confused with Chat Pile, Scrap Pile. Text on the screen. This is called the Eagle Leg Slasher, and it's brutal death metal. Y'all know I love death metal about slashers. But what I really like about this one is even though it's brutal death, it can be a little mid-tempo sometimes. It's almost got like a slam groove to it. And yeah, they do the pig squeals, but these are weird and odd pig squeals with layered vocals, almost alien-like. I've never heard anything like that, and that's why it made this week's top 5. Make sure you check it out. Coming in at number 4, the band is Ignea, and the album is Dreams of Lands Unseen. This is symphonic, progressive death metal. And this one is interesting because it's got lots of Middle Eastern sounds in it, which creates for a unique sound in the genre. And it's also got a female singer over the top of it that does the clean choruses and the more operatic parts. And I normally don't like that from male or female. I don't normally like those kind of vocals, but she does a fair bit of screaming herself too. And with the Middle Eastern vibe, there was just so many cool sounds on this one. Figured I'd bring you something different. I enjoyed it. You'll enjoy it too. Check it out. Coming in at number 3, we've got Terra Knock. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Again, text on the screen. Every band's Bandcamp link will be in the description just in case. This is called Icon of Ruin. This is like some thrashy death or death and thrash. I don't know, it's definitely thrash metal, but it's got brutal vocals, which I absolutely love. And one of the cool things about this one is even though it's very thrashy, sometimes the guitar player seems to be like noodling on a cool idea he had. And it just feels like they just like, yeah, that's cool, let's put that in the song. And then they'll play with that for a minute and then go back to melting your face. That's cool, I like that. Coming in at number 2, I love this band. They had an album a couple of years ago that really set my world on fire, and now they've got a new one. It's Fires in the Distance with Air Not Meant for Us. They're melodic death doom, but there's all these cool piano parts, and then when it's not piano, the keys are doing synth stuff. It's very atmospheric, but this is cool because it's chuggy, which isn't really a thing that you hear much in doom metal. But these guys really like to chug on it for a minute, and the guitar player in me just loves that groove. You'll love Fires in the Distance if you check this one out as well. But hey, before we do number 1, let me just say, if you love metal the way that I love metal, then you're in the right place. You should be a part of the Heavy Metal Philosophy community because we do this every weekend, breaking down the best new metal and a podcast every Tuesday on the philosophy behind metal. So join us. You'll love it. And if you love any of these bands, hit the like button because it helps the bands and it helps me. No more shilling for myself. Now let's do number 1. Coming in at number 1, we've got Graveworm. I love that band name. The name of the album is Killing Innocence, and this is melodic, blackened death with gothic influences. Yeah, sure, but it's epic. There's so many epic parts on it, and then the vocals are so heavy. I love the vocals on this one, and then they'll turn in some progressive bits just to make it interesting before they crush you again. As you can tell, I absolutely enjoyed this one. You will too. That's why it's number 1. Make sure you check it out. But we're not done. Now we got to talk about this week's album art of the week. This week's album art of the week comes from Spotlight's Alchemy for the Dead. I got this one early. My review for Metal Digest is already published. Links in the description to all my writings. This is like some doom gaze or post-rock or maybe alternative rock with like dark influences. It's a haunting album. It's very moody and beautiful. And speaking of, look at this album cover. It's also moody and beautiful. Look at this woman's visage and the way her eyes look. What is she thinking? It almost looks a little bit like one of those, you know, when you go to the mountains and they take an old-timey Western photo of you and your woman. It looks like that. Instead of sexy, it's more ghastly. And even the font looks kind of like a Ouija board font. It's just creepy. And it made me wonder what's going on. That's the kind of album art that makes you want to listen to the album. I love it. This is definitely different when it comes to metal. That's why it's this week's album art of the week. So there you have it. Please tell me in the comments what you think about these bands. Do you like them as much as I like them? I know you will, because these bands are crushing it. Not to mention New Enforced. I'm about to spin the hell out of that while I edit this. But hey, like I said at the beginning, if you want to hear my thoughts on Enforced, we did a podcast on them last week. Just click right here and that'll bring you to the podcast. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.